Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Amanda and today I'm going to be chatting through all the books that I have hauled since the beginning of the year. So I'm really proud to say I have actually read a good majority of these books and there's not that many, which I'm so proud of. So I guess I could have saved this video and done like a first half of the year book haul, but I wanna talk about these books. I don't wanna have to talk about a ton of books every time in a book haul, but like I do wanna wait until I have a decent amount. But I think I have roughly 40 books to talk about, which for me personally is great. And just looking at the stacks here, I have read so many of these and it just makes me really happy that I'm actually reading the books that I'm bringing in, which is the point, you know? So without further ado, let's get into the book haul. So I also want to mention these books are mostly in order of when I got them. So we're going to go back into January and work our way through until like end of April, a little bit into May. So the first book I have here is The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. This is the 10th anniversary special edition. I absolutely love these new covers. I have read the entire Bone Season series. I absolutely love it. And I have bought the rest of the series in these editions. I cannot wait. They should be here fairly soon, I think. And I'm so excited to reread these because these are also completely rewritten. Samantha Shannon went back and has rewritten this series and I'm really excited to reread them with these editions to see kind of what's different. And I just love these new editions. Like they are just gorgeous. I also appreciate that they're all gonna match because right now they I just can't find the hardcovers for the middle books. So it looks weird that I have like a hardcover, two paperbacks, and then a hardcover. So I'm excited to have this series all in hardcover. Next up is the Evernight subscription book from January, I believe. And that is The Invocations by Crystal Sutherland. I didn't totally love this one, but I do quite like this edition of the book at least. I think it's pretty cool. There's like a really creepy like skeleton on the sprayed edge, if my camera will focus. Like it's so spooky ooky. Yeah, like I said, I didn't love this one, but it was okay. Next up, I'm going to talk about 3 books all at once because I did buy an entire series, and that is the House of Earth and Blood series. So I went ahead and bought House of Earth and Blood. I guess it's actually the Crescent City series. I'm so confused by the namings of these books. Like, why is House of Earth and Blood so small if that's not like the series title? You would think Crescent City would be in the title. Anyways, I'm confused. So I got that, House of Sky and Breath, and House of Flame and Shadow. I am reading all of Sarah J. Maas this year, which, unlucky for me, I'm not enjoying them, but I at least want to just have them read so I kind of get what everybody's talking about. So House of Earth and Blood is next up on the docket for me, and then I do actually quite like her audiobooks. I don't think they're terrible, so I have been listening to all of them on audio, which has been a pretty good experience. So I do need to read this one next, and then hopefully in the subsequent months, I'll get to these too. So at least I'll finally be caught up with the series. Next up is a book that I pre-ordered, and that is Heart Song by TJ Klune. This is the 3rd book in the Wolf Song series. I really liked Wolf Song, but now that more time has passed, I don't think I actually liked it as much as I thought I did. But I do want to continue with this series. I just think it read a lot like Wattpad books, you know? Like, nothing against that, but it just has that kind of vibe. And like, I don't know if that's really what I want to be reading these days, but I will continue. I do really like these hardcover editions. I think they're really gorgeous. Like the covers are just so pretty, but the story needs to matter more than just being pretty, you know? Next up are 2 indie pub fantasy books that I bought while on a trip with my parents, I think in like February. So I got Aurora Sky Vampire Hunter by Nikki Jeffords. I actually got volumes 1 and 2 bind up, and then volume 3 and 4 bind up. So technically this is like 4 books, I think, published as 2, I think. So yeah, book 1, book 2, and then book 3, book 4. Yeah. So I bought these because these are romantasy books set in Alaska with vampires, and this author does live in Alaska, and I'm like, I want to support her. That's amazing. I've never heard of these. I do have this one on my Our Fantasy Bingo board, so I will be reading it at some point, and I'm looking forward to it. I really want to see more romantasy books, either set in Alaska or written by Alaskan authors. I think that'd be so fun, and I'm looking forward to getting to these. Next up is An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. I read this during a 48-hour readathon. I read this in just a couple of hours, and I really quite enjoyed it, and I'm glad to have a copy as part of my collection. This is a companion book to A Dowry of Blood, and I will say I don't think there's too much of a connection between the two personally. I think they're just set in the same world. I really don't think they have anything that correlates between the two story-wise, so I think you're safe to read either one first if one is pulling you more than the other. I really don't think it matters what order you read them in. I read A Dowry of Blood first and then this one, but I didn't see any connections, or at least I don't remember anything, but I did quite like this one. Next up, oh my gosh, I just see this book and I just love it. And so I bought myself a copy of Blood Mercy by Vila Roth. This is book 1 in the Blood Mercy series. I actually didn't pay any money for this book because I used points on Barnes & Noble to buy it. And I bought it after I read the ebook on KU because I'm doing this new thing where I'm buying books that I am either reading on Kindle Unlimited or from the library, which has been really fun. So like I'm keeping a running list of all the books that I have read so far that I would like to have a copy of. So when I do get the urge to buy books, when I do buy them, I've already read them. So I did that with this book. I love the floppy paperback. Okay, she's not being floppy. There we go. It's such a floppy paperback, and it's like that soft touch, like indie fantasy cover. I'm just obsessed. This series is so good, or at least this first book was so good. I really do want to continue with it. I'm struggling to read, as y'all know, but I am not struggling to acquire books, as you know. So absolutely adored this one. Please, please, please pick this up. I adored it so much. Okay, I think my books got like a tiny bit mixed up because this book should actually be somewhere else in the stack, but it really don't matter. So the next book is Africa Risen, which is edited by Cherie Renee Thomas and a bunch of other people. Plus, this is a short story collection, I think of like 32 authors. And I bought this as part of my Our Fantasy Bingo board to read an anthology collection. And I will read this at some point, and I'm really looking forward to it. I've been pretty interested in this one. I do like the idea of anthologies and getting a chance to like sample a bunch of different things from a bunch of different authors and see if I would want to read a full-length book from them, but they also intimidate me quite a bit. So I don't pick up a ton of anthologies, but this one sounds really good. Next up is, I believe it must be April because it's a quarterly subscription. I believe this is the April Evernight subscription book, and that is Murder Road by Simone St. James. I have read this one as well, and this one is just okay for me. I love the edition, but I think I mentioned this in a vlog, but I really feel like Evernight is not picking horror book. I feel like they're picking mystery and thrillers. Like nothing has been horrific. I guess Last to Leave the Room was like a horror. I'd say that one is definitely a horror book, but like some of these just aren't horror. But I do quite love the editions. I think they're fun, but they're just not horror. But I'll probably stay subscribed for a little bit. Next up is Untamed Shore by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. I actually did not pay anything for this book. I had enough money on my Pango account to just get this book. I have been hunting this book down for, I think, literal years. Every time I'd go to buy it on Barnes & Noble, it's out of stock, or it's suddenly like $50 to buy a paperback copy, and I'm like, that's just ridiculous. So finally found a copy on Pango. I think this book was listed for like $8 or something. Immediately snatched it up, and I'm looking forward to it. I really love just collecting Sylvia Moreno Garcia books. I do love reading them too, but like I feel like it's just so fun to collect them because she just has such a wide range of things that she writes about. And this one is set in California in 1979, and I'm pretty sure there's something spooky ooky that happens. It says it's a blazing novel of suspense with an eerie seaside setting and a literary edge that proves her master of the genre, which I just feel like is her vibe. I just love it. So looking forward to this one. Next up is another pre-order, and that is Funny Story by Emily Henry. I kind of want to say this, but like I don't want to set it in stone, but I feel like this might be my last chance with Emily Henry because I feel like her books sound so good, and I picked them up and I'm disappointed by her character work and the plot, and I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to feel about this. So I will try to read this one somewhat soon, but we'll just see. I am very skeptical about it. So we'll just kind of see how it goes, I guess. Oh my gosh, this next stack is so tall. Let me scooch it over so I don't knock it all over. Okay, and next up, the next couple of books are all by the same author. So we have The Final Strife and The Battle Drum, both by Sarah Al-Arifi. She might be one of my new favorite fantasy authors. Let me tell you. I read The Final Strife, I think like a month or two ago, and I'm still thinking about this book. It was seriously so good, and I am itching to get into The Battle Drum, which is book 2. I'm saving this one till it gets a little closer to book 3 so I can kind of binge this one and then go right into book 3 the next month. But I love these covers. I specifically wanted the hardcovers because they are just stunning. Like stunning. So I absolutely love these covers, and these books are so good. Like if you are a fantasy girly, you gotta read these. They're so good. And then of course I also have Feybound, which I absolutely loved, which I feel like is an unpopular opinion. I just had a great time. Like this book was just for pure entertainment, super fun. I gave it 5 stars when I read it, and I cannot wait to continue with this series. I just want to read everything that Sarah Al-Arifi puts out because I will gobble it up. It is just perfection to me. Next up is a book I probably should not have anymore and maybe should sell, but it's just so pretty that I don't want to get rid of it, which I know is like really petty, and that is The Foxglove King by Hannah Whitten. I really just don't think Hannah Whitten and I are meant to be because I read her books and I either DNF them or I just don't like them. So this one I DNF'd, I just was not vibing with it, and her covers and premises always are so good, but they just never work for me, which is unfortunate. Maybe I should stop buying her books. Same with Emily Henry, like maybe I should just stop buying them and just get them from the library. I should probably do that. Next up is A Tempest of Tea by Hafsa Faizal. This is a new series by this author. I didn't love this one, so I definitely will not be continuing with it, but I also want to try rereading it because I think the audiobook was not very good for this personally, so maybe reading it physically would be better, but I'll give it another whirl. I'll hold on to it for now. I do really love this exclusive edition of it, but it was not my favorite when I read it. I am itching to read this book and I keep not reading it, and that is A Step Past Darkness by Vera Kurian. I read Never Saw Me Coming by this author and was obsessed with it. I gave it 5 stars. I just absolutely loved it, and this is her latest book, and it's a thriller, I think, but it's like set in like dark academia. There's like 6 classmates, one terrifying night, a murder 20 years in the making. I'm just itching to read this because I loved her debut book so much, and I read it really soon before this one came out, and I'm like, yo, I gotta read this. Guess who hasn't read it? Yep. So I'm gonna try to prioritize this one. I think this would be a really fun summer thriller, you know? So hopefully I'll get to it soon. Next up is Finlay Donovan Rolls the Dice by El Cosmano. I read this in April, I think, and I was not a fan, personally. I'm really sad the series is going downhill. I just feel like it's not the same series that I started reading, and it's disappointing for sure. I'm just really sad that this is where the story is going. Like, it just feels so ridiculous, and I think I'll continue reading them because I do love these characters, but it is disappointing that it's just not where it began, you know? Next up is The Sunlit Man by Branda Sando. I am participating in a read-along called Brandy Sandy Along with a bunch of my friends, and we are reading Brando Sando for basically the rest of 2024 and 2025. So we got a lot of reading to do. So I think we're starting Stormlight in June, which makes me want to scream. I have been hoarding Stormlight books for years and have not been reading them because I'm terrified of them. but I think having a buddy read with everybody is going to really help. Plus, I bought the audiobooks for the whole series, so I'm going to be listening to them and following along, and it should be a good time, hopefully. So, I have this in preparation of reading it in 2025, so I am ready. I think I have all the books that I need. And I have no clue what this is about. I'll tell you once I'll read it. Next up are a couple of gifts from my mom, which is super nice of her. She always spoils me around like little holidays. I think this was in Easter? I think it was Easter. So I got A Game of Hearts and Heist by Ruby Rowe. This is the first book in her other series. I loved House of Crimson Hearts, I think it was. I loved that book and I really want to read more. So this one I believe is vampires and I'm obsessed already. I gotta read it. Gotta read it. Next up is Tales of the Celestial Kingdom by Sue Lynn Tan. This is a collection of short stories set between, during, and after, or no, before, during, and after the Daughter of the Moon Goddess duology. This is super itty bitty and short. And what's really cool about this book is that if you do purchase a physical copy of the book, all proceeds go to charity, which I think is super, super cool. So I did like this one a fair bit. I read it, I think, last month, and it was fine. But I am glad to add it to the collection and also support charity. That's always awesome. Next up, I got Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wang. I have been hearing a lot of great things about this one, especially in my friend group. So I don't know too much about this. I just know it's a standalone romantasy, and that's all I need. I need more standalone fantasy books, whether they are romantasy or not. I need more standalone books because I have way too many series on the go. But I'm really excited about this one. Oh, actually, I think this was like dark academia. I saw the word dark academia brimming with mystery, tragedy, and the damning echoes of the past. I just can't wait. People really love this author and I cannot wait to read from her. Next, the next couple of books are books for our fantasy bingo. I did buy some copies of them because I needed them. Well, I didn't need them, but like I wanted to have them because I think having the physical copy might make it a little more accessible for me to actually get to them. And so the first one I have is Fathom Folk by Eliza Chan. This has really bad reviews on Goodreads, but I did put it on my Our Fantasy Bingo for being a book set mostly underwater. And I don't know much about this one other than it's a thrilling, incisive fantasy of diaspora and dragons, and it's a debut, and it's a Southeast Asian influenced fantasy. So I'm excited for it still because I do love underwater fantasy. I just love anything like that. This is an Orbit release too, and actually a lot of these books are, so that's also a thing. I don't know. I was gonna make like, I love Orbit books, but like actually I don't really know. I do want to make like a video concept where I look at the books that I read from different publishers and then like do an assessment of like, oh look, I give like Penguin Random House all 4 stars and like kind of do an audit. But like, that's a video for another time. Next up is The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. I've been wanting to read this book for several years now and I put it on my Our Fantasy Bingo board. This book just sounds so, so good. I've heard nothing but really great things about this. And I believe there's a new book coming out somewhat soon-ish. So it'd be fun to catch up in the series and then read the latest book. But I just am interested. It's dragons. I'm here for it. Next up is The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. I don't love his other series, which starts with Malice. I read Malice a couple years ago. I did not like it very much, but I'm gonna try this one and see if it's any better to me. But again, this is for Our Fantasy Bingo, so I wanted to get myself a copy. Alrighty, we are down to the last 2 books. So second to last, we have The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. This was one of my most anticipated releases for the year. Sadly gave it 3 stars, but glad I read it. Not my favorite by this author, but it was still pretty good. And the final book, I am so excited to finally own this specific edition of this book. I have been waiting to find a copy at a reasonable price because I have the UK edition of the first book in this series and I got it from Illumicrate and I did not have the time and I didn't know that they were selling the second book and it was already sold out and it's never been for sale again, and so I've been searching and searching and searching for the hardcover in particular, and I finally got it off Pango. Like it was more money than I'd probably spend on a book, but it's it's been really hard to find. And that is A Fire Endless by Rebecca Ross. Again, another Our Fantasy Bingo book, but I really wanted this specific edition because it is the same height and matches my hardcover edition of the first book. So I finally found it. It obviously does not have the sprayed edges that the first book has, but the cover is still absolutely stunning and it just matches in general. That's all I really care about. So I will be reading this at some point in the year to fulfill Our Fantasy Bingo, and I'm looking forward to it. So there you have it, friends. Those are the 40-ish books that I have acquired since the beginning of the year. I really hope to only have to do like maybe one more book haul this year because I really am not buying that many books. I honestly just won't have the time to go book shopping and online shopping. I just haven't really been doing for books. Everything else, I'm buying a lot of other things. Plus, everything just costs so much right now that I don't need to be spending like a ton of money on books when I have plenty to read and I have my Kindle and all that. So that is going to be it for this video. Thank you all so very much for joining me. Let me know any of your thoughts on any of the books that I mentioned, as I would love to know, and I will see you all in another video soon. Goodbye!